What if the reason you feel so empty is not that you have failed to become happy, but that you made happiness the goal? We live in a culture that treats feeling good as proof that life is going well, and feeling bad as proof that something has gone wrong. So we spend more and more of our lives trying to stay comfortable, stay distracted, stay stimulated, and stay positive. But the strange result is not peace, it is fragility. The more we organize life around comfort, the less capable we become of carrying anything heavy. And a life that carries nothing heavy eventually feels weightless in the worst way, not free, but hollow. The books behind this video all point toward a similar truth. Happiness matters, but it is too unstable to be worshipped. Emily Esfahani Smith distinguishes between a happy life and a meaningful life. The happy life is often about feeling good, reducing stress, and having one's desires satisfied. The meaningful life asks something harder. It asks whether your life connects to something beyond your immediate comfort. William Damon reaches a similar conclusion from a different angle. People become emotionally steadier not by centering themselves, but by devoting themselves to a purpose. In other words, the more your life becomes a project of self-maintenance, the easier it is to feel empty. The more your life becomes a project of contribution, devotion, and direction, the more durable your fulfillment becomes. That helps explain why so many modern reward loops feel full in the moment and thin afterward. Scroll a little, buy a little, consume a little, escape a little, repeat. None of those things are evil by themselves. The problem is when they become the architecture of your life. Quick rewards mimic satisfaction, but they do not necessarily build a self. They can numb discomfort without answering the deeper question underneath it. What is all of this for? If your days are designed mainly to avoid friction, then every inconvenience starts to feel offensive, every delay feels unbearable, and every difficult season feels like a malfunction. But difficulty is not always a malfunction. Often it is the place where a life starts to become real. Comfort is useful, but it is terrible as a master. A life built around convenience slowly weakens the muscles that meaning requires. Resilience fades when nothing hard is faced on purpose. Patience fades when every desire expects immediate satisfaction. Courage fades when discomfort is always interpreted as danger. And once those inner capacities begin to shrink, ordinary life starts feeling unreasonably heavy. Small setbacks feel catastrophic, boredom grows, anxiety grows, not because life suddenly became impossible, but because the self has been trained to avoid resistance. A bridge without tension cannot support real weight. A person without chosen struggle cannot support a life of substance. This is where Viktor Frankl becomes essential. Frankl did not romanticize suffering, but he refused to treat all pain as meaningless. He argued that people do not simply need comfort, they need a reason, they need responsibility, they need a why strong enough to carry them through a hard how. That changes the meaning of struggle. Pain is not always a puzzle to eliminate as quickly as possible. Sometimes it is the cost of loyalty, love, discipline, creation, parenthood, service, or growth. Carol Dweck's work helps here too. A challenge can be interpreted in two ways. Either it is evidence that you are inadequate, or it is the terrain through which you expand. If you run from every challenge, you preserve your comfort but shrink your life. If you accept appropriate difficulty, you build identity. This is why a serious life needs what we could call voluntary friction. Read when you could scroll, train when you could stay soft, commit when you could keep all your options open, tell the truth when performance would be easier, stay with a demanding craft long enough to become someone inside it. Rollo May wrote about courage not as noise or bravado, but as the willingness to commit oneself in the face of uncertainty. That is what voluntary friction is. It is chosen resistance in service of becoming. It is how you stop being merely a consumer of moods and become the author of a life. At some point, the central question has to change from how do I keep feeling good to what is worth giving myself to. That is the real shift from a consumer mindset to an agentic one. Frankl insists that freedom without responsibility collapses into emptiness. Damon shows that purpose becomes stable when it matters both to the self and to the world beyond the self. Smith adds that meaning often grows when we belong, when we serve, when we tell the truth about our lives, and when we touch something larger than ego. Deep satisfaction is usually not found in a life with no burden. It is found in carrying the right burden well. So how do you dismantle the pleasure trap? First, stop using mood as your main compass. A good action does not become bad because it is hard. Second, choose one long-term responsibility that forces you to grow. A body of work, a discipline, a relationship, a service, a mission. Third, make room for both joy and sorrow inside the same life story. The goal is not to become grim. The goal is to stop treating joy as the only acceptable state. Fourth, protect real relationships. Robert Waldinger and Mark Schultz show that flourishing is deeply tied to the quality of our connections, not simply to achievement or stimulation. A meaningful life is usually built with other people, not apart from them. So no, the answer is not to hate happiness. The answer is to put it in its proper place. Enjoy pleasure, welcome joy, rest when rest is needed, but do not build your life around the avoidance of strain. A life worth admiring will include tension, duty, grief, effort, uncertainty, and love. It will ask more from you than your comfort wants to give, but that is exactly why it can become a life of substance. Stop chasing happiness as if it were a trophy. Start becoming the kind of person who can carry meaning. And you may discover that the deepest form of happiness was never in your grasping. It was waiting on the other side of your devotion.